I would like to share a few details about what we're going to be discussing today and the agenda and the workflow. First, I'll share for the next 10 to 15 minutes some initial information on the trade and retail market in Vietnam, as well as strategies for market entry. Then we'll have Peter Cousteau, General Manager, will panel by numerator to share more deeper insights into FMCG sector and the retail opportunity. After that, we'll have a panel discussion. The first two sessions should be in total around 30 minutes, and after that, we'll go straight to the panel discussion. Following that, networking and exchange of ideas is encouraged, and we'll go through as well with our friends and attendees on the online webinar with any questions and Q&A within the panel discussion as well. So moving forward, a few details about myself. I've been in Vietnam for around 8.5 years. I was based in Malaysia for around 4.5 years. Prior to that, I worked for a company called Climb, looking after foreign investors and helping them access the Vietnamese market from the complexity of regulatory perspective and going through the practicalities of how to do that across the majority of the sectors of the economy. I'm also the Vice Chairman of the Central East European Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, part of the broader European Chamber community here. Climb is an advisory firm. We have quite a large office in Vietnam, close to 300 staff in Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, and Da Nang. We're part of a Climb group with jurisdictions across 20 countries in Asia, supporting investors, foreign investors, to access these complex markets the right way and protecting them while they operate in these jurisdictions. Now, the state of trade and retail in Vietnam. What are some of the key insights that I'd like to share with you today? First of all, going through the macro understanding that has a significant impact on the retail function. You see here quite a lot of significant targets that the authorities want to deliver by 2030. I would like to touch on two of those. The 270 billion USD in 2025 total retail sales of consumer goods, and the target for 2030 is almost double of that, almost $500 billion of investments within the sales and consumer goods services in Vietnam. And that is a significant opportunity in 5 years for existing and for future investors that want to access the market. Separately, the 14% contribution to GDP rate of the digital economy in 2025. This number has been talked quite a lot from the authorities' perspective that are looking to develop the digital economy. And we see that retail and trade in general has a significant impact through its e-commerce verticals into the digital economy. The growth by 2030 is projected to be around 30% of the entire GDP. Very similar to what the manufacturing sector is doing as of now. So if you look at digital economy and manufacturing, they will be at the competitive level to provide significant value to the economy, and that will be a massive shift for the Vietnamese economic development, transitioning from a manufacturing-based economy to a digital economy as the first vertical to grow. And speaking of what the government is doing to get to those numbers, there's quite a few strategies and quite a few circulars and laws that were put in place, starting with last year, moving towards this year, particularly 2% VAT reduction, 0% tax on gas and oil, but as well the increased tax exemptions thresholds for domestic households. And not just that. If you've seen last week, there was a circular issued by the authorities that foreign invested SMEs, together with domestic SMEs, now can leverage a 3-year corporate income tax holiday. And that is a significant support, particularly for the consumer side, because those investors can focus on employing more staff instead of paying that tax for the first 3 years and then further developing the consumer impact across services and products in Vietnam. There's various resolutions that reflect the personal income tax, the increase in minimum wages. You can find those online. You can go to our website and read more about that. but all of that is designed to protect and to enable the growth of the consumer market. And as we know, or the people that are the businesses that are in the industry, including Peter from Word Panel, we know that the consumer market had a quite challenging time, quite a rough time, starting with COVID times, post-COVID, and then the trade war times, and then post-trade war. So it is a fragile growth that is experienced across the consumer base, and there is a lot of support that is needed in that area. A quick snapshot on the retail market as of today. In the first 5 months of 2026, there is a 11% growth year on year on the retail sales of goods, services, tourism, accommodation, and so on. And again, that consistency, it's really hard to see across all the sectors in Vietnam, particularly the retail and the online commerce. They are set to experience consistent 10% up to 20% growth on a year-to-year basis. Existing giants within the retail space are continuously investing and expanding in Vietnam, and we see as well new brands, new significant global and regional brands coming in the market. One of them here is actually our client. We supported them with retail outlet licenses. We'll talk about that later. But we see a significant M&A exposure within the retail and trade sector, and as well significant global brands that are accessing the market in Vietnam. Digital e-commerce, digital commerce engine is a massive part of the overall trade and retail sector in Vietnam. As you see at the moment, Vietnam is positioned third across the region after Indonesia and Thailand. From a value perspective of the GMV of the total e-commerce sales within a year. I believe 5-6 years ago when I was here, Vietnam was number 5 or number 6. It is a significant growth, and maybe Peter has more insights on that. The Vietnamese e-commerce sector. But when you're looking at 2030 targets, Vietnam will end up in the second position, almost certainly, just looking at the way the growth of the market is developing. The big 4 platforms, probably Peter will talk about that later on, still Shopee and TikTok Shop are leading. And we see the innovation that they bring in the market as a significant support function for separated brands, for unique brands to list themselves into these platforms and nurture the growth and nurture the opportunities that exist in the online space, not just in the retail space. I'll skip the AI integration. I think we'll cover that in the panel discussion quite a bit. I'll cover in this area some of the insights that we have at a client from a market entry perspective. I know in the audience we have already experienced sophisticated investors that are already in the market taking advantage. There might be some investors that are looking into exploring the opportunity of the Vietnam retail sector. In a simplified way, in the next 1 or 2 minutes, to give you a brief taste on how that structuring of the market entry would look like. Essentially, investors have 2 options, either setting up an onshore entity, a limited liability company, 100% owned by the parent, that enables the investor to list their company on TikTok and on Shopee and Lazada and many other platforms. In order to do that, they need to go through a licensing process. There's no dedicated restrictions or significant roadblocks to go through that process of sub-licensing for the trading license or website notification. It takes a bit of time and it takes a bit of effort to get there, but there's no roadblocks per se for investors to access these licenses. The second model, and we see quite a lot of global e-commerce platforms that are leveraging the second model, is to not set up a fully fledged e-commerce entity in Vietnam, but to register the global entity with the authorities. By doing that and leveraging the existing tax law, they can go through that tax registration program, where they will go through a regular quarterly compliance to declare revenues sourced from the Vietnamese jurisdiction on the global platform. And with that, from a structure perspective, they can have a rep office or an entity that will be the operational on the ground support function of the global platform. And we see investors going through this route before to kind of test the market and learn from the market into what needs to be done for them to be successful. And then they will go back to setting up the onshore entity in the country. From a setup perspective, you have here, sorry, you have here the general process. It's very similar with setting up any other company in any other sector. IRC, ERC, the process generally takes around 2.5 months in practice to set up the company from start to finish. What investors need to consider is the mandatory licenses that they need to obtain after establishment. And usually that reflects a trading license to enable investors to do online trade or trade across retail outlets. And if there are retail outlets in place and the investors are looking to set up either 1 or 2 or 10 or 20, for each of those retail outlets, they need to obtain a dedicated license. What I would add here is that wholesale trading, and I'm sure there's a few investors that are already part of that sector niche of the wholesale trading, doesn't require specific licensing requirements, right? No trading license per se, no retail outlet license per se. So to finalize on this, my key takeaways for this morning would be these 4 on the list here. I will touch on omni-channel integration. Omni-channel integration basically means blurring the edges between online and offline, creating a symbiosis between the channels that are used to promote services and goods and take on that physical exposure into the online space and integrate that into a seamless experience. AI is, of course, very important. I believe we have the statistics that around 60% of most of the online retailers in Vietnam use AI across the entire customer journey process. And I'll touch on the financial optimization and regulatory function. You've seen licenses and structuring in place. I do emphasize that it is important for investors to know from the start what type of model of market entry they're choosing, why that makes sense for them at that specific time in place, and what happens in the next 2 or 3 years. Do they transition to something else? They plan for an exit, they plan for an M&A, and preparing that from the outset is essential for investors that want to really protect their business while they're operating in Vietnam. And keep in mind, there is a market consolidation happening, and smaller players coming in, they might be absorbed. Larger players coming in, they might disrupt the market. We've seen that happening with a few large e-commerce platforms coming in from North Asia into Vietnam. The competition is quite strong. However, the 2030 opportunity of growth, as you've seen in the numbers, is quite significant, almost double of the market that exists today. And with that, I would like to say thank you for your attention for this short presentation. If there's any questions or concerns about what I just shared now, just write them down or put them in the online chat box. We can get through all of those in the Q&A and we can have an interactive discussion. So thank you again for your attention.
Thank you, Vlad. Good morning, everyone. So as Vlad already introduced, I am Peter. I'm looking after the World Panel by Numerator business in Vietnam. We are a market research, tech-enabled market research company. Okay, so in Vietnam, what it is that we do is we track the shopping behavior of Vietnamese families, specifically towards FMCG. So anything that you buy in the supermarket, you will tell us via app, and we collect that information. And that is where the data, the first party data that we have. And we help clients to understand the market and therefore take decisions to enable their growth. I'm Peter. I've been working for this company for 19 years. and in Vietnam for the last 12. So thank you for taking time today. My presentation has a lot of numbers in it. Okay, I'm a market researcher. So if you don't like numbers, good luck. If you like numbers, then this is the presentation for you. But I will go quite quickly because I've been told I need to keep to time. I will make slides available at the end so you can save your arms taking photographs. Okay, so very quick. At a glance, Vlad already touched on some of the macro context. Okay, 2025 was a good year for Vietnam in terms of the economy. Okay, 8% GDP growth, continued improvement in the average incomes of families throughout the year. And actually last year was a very strong year. It was a busy event calendar. It was, 80th National Day, 50th reunification. So many activities were able to kind of get the market moving quite quickly and to generate spending as well. So the long-term trajectory of Vietnam is still very positive. Q1 26 GDP 7.83. So again, still kind of on track, despite what, everything that's been going on in the global economy. That being said, not everything is, smooth and rosy. So one of the things that we do is we ask the panelists that we have, what are their biggest concerns? So in the blue, I have the average 2024, and in yellow, the average 2025. So of course, when you ask people what their biggest concerns are, disease, sickness is always something that's very important. In Vietnam, food safety is something that's also very important. And there's been a lot of scandals around food safety and fake products that spook consumers in the market today. Now, what you can see with all these red dots is that the general feeling of concern is escalated versus the previous year across food safety, household income, job security, and also increasing costs of utilities. This is a big concern, and it has an impact on consumers' wallets, right? When they have concerns around all of these financial things and even their job security, it impacts the way they spend money and the way they think about spending money. Just for your information, this is data to 2025. If anyone's wondering why no one's concerned about the price of oil, only 7%, it's over 50% if I look at the Q1 number. Obviously, everything that happened at the start of this year. So it's, Vietnamese consumers react very quickly to what's going on in Vietnam, but also around the world. But again, lots of government effort to stimulate the domestic market. Okay, so firstly, Vlad already mentioned the value added tax kept to 8% instead of 10%. And new personal income tax deduction has also started to be applied, which has given some small improvements to people in the local market, and also a more transparent business environment. So cracking down on fake products has been a really important thing that the government have been trying to do. To tighten controls on this, you will have seen a lot of news articles on this topic, and lots of compliance and policies for SMEs. So basically trying to make Vietnam a market with much more transparency and much more high legal standards. So that's the overall context. What is happening today within FMCG? So as I mentioned, we focus mainly on fast-moving consumer goods. Here I have the growth of fast-moving consumer goods in urban and rural areas. The key highlight I would like to show you here is that the last couple of years has been quite a struggle in terms of finding growth. Okay, we had some time where price in the light green, so it means increasing prices, were offsetting the volume loss that a lot of companies were finding. So volume was growing even if value was growing, even if volume was not. However, what we're seeing now is that that's really no longer the case. The price increase is not able to offset the volume decline across a lot of categories. And that is the overall in-home consumption. We can break that out by 5 key sectors that we look at. Okay, so the 5 key sectors, and you will recognize these from your shopping: dairy, beverages, packaged foods, personal care, and home care. And what we actually see is the bigger concern is around the F&B area. So dairy, beverages, and packaged foods are the ones that are bringing down the market, while home care, personal care still actually maintaining to some degree the performance. Now, this is for in-home consumption. One of the things that I do want to call out is for F&B, the out-of-home environment has actually been improving somewhat. So obviously we had COVID and everything that happened. You can see here that the domestic tourism has continued to increase since then. Also international tourism, if you look at the numbers, we've hit peaks again in terms of the number of people coming to Vietnam. That is helping to generate a much stronger F&B revenue in terms of out of home. So this is something that is returning to growth. For the in-home consumption, I already said that the market overall is struggling. It doesn't mean that every single category and every single brand is struggling. So on this slide here, what we've got is performance over 2 years, and every dot is a specific FMCG category. So you can see that across the 2 years, there are some categories which have been able to grow 2 years consecutively. At the same time, there are categories who have decreased 2 years consecutively. So it's not a one-size-fits-all message. Now, to give you an idea of what's in there, some of the accelerators here around multi-purpose cleaner, oyster sauce, lip gloss, foundation, so getting really into the specifics like meal maker. These are all things that are driving convenience benefit for consumers, right? We're time short, time sensitive. So lots of things that help make our life quicker and easier, and also the health aspect as well. Some of the categories which have struggled, maybe the more traditional ones, and also ones where we've had food scandals and things like that impacting consumers' behavior. So that being said, what would I talk about in terms of if you're a brand or a manufacturer and you're trying to grow in Vietnam? There's 3 areas I would just like to call out. If we talk about who. So firstly, Vietnam, I think you all know, it's a very long country. Between North, Central, and South, the behaviors, the culture can be very different. So first recommendation is to never look at Vietnam as one whole country necessarily. I think for me, there's lots of numbers here just showing you how the breakdown of the Vietnamese households look like, okay? The thing I would like to draw your attention to is, you know, in terms of household income, this is monthly household income. There are still 18% of households whose monthly household income is 6 million or less, 6 million VND or less, okay? And if we go with the household income over 30 million, it's only 7% of households in the whole country, okay? So sometimes it's easy to forget that when we live in Ho Chi Minh City, but you know, that is really the reality of consumers today. What I want to talk about is the smaller households, because this is something that's happening across Asia. We see in Japan and countries like that, even single member households becoming, you know, 50, 60% of the market. But these small households so there's 13.5 million households that have 3 or less members, and they make up nearly half of households. Why do I call them out? Is because they are growing. Over time, we will have more smaller households, and that changes the way we need to think. So in the past, it was about a product that serves many people in the household. Now there are more households to serve. Why is that interesting? Because on average, they spend more per person on FMCG. So when there's less people, there's less pressure. They have the opportunity to have more convenient lifestyle, and they also have a greater self-care orientation. Okay, so smaller households, they spend more per capita, and they look for convenience and they look for self-care. The other thing that some of you might know or recognize is that they love pets. So the birth rate is declining, but the adoption of pets is increasing significantly across the world, Asia, and also in Vietnam. And if you're in this industry, this is a very good industry to be in, not only for pet food, but also for all of the surrounding industries like dog hotels, all these kinds of things. This is definitely an area which is growing. And if if you're a smaller household with no children, you have the capacity to spend more for your pets. Okay, so that's something that I just wanted to highlight. The second one around the portfolio management. There are lots and lots and lots of new products launched in the market every single day. In fact, within FMCG, it's more than 35 new products per day. It's a huge number when you think about that, right? How many new products there are. They can be new brands, they can be new variants, and they can be new pack types, okay? But the thing that I want to draw your attention to is whilst there are more products to diversify and excite the market, the innovation part is easy. The sustaining part is the thing that's difficult. If I take two categories, one is biscuits, one is shower gel. Out of 500 nearly new products of biscuits, only 3% of them reach 1% of Vietnamese households, which is a very, big number. And only 14% of the people who bought those products bought them again. So launching the product is the easy part. Sustaining and staying alive 1 year, 2 years, that is the challenge for all of the new products that come into the market. And the way we look at things, this is an example of non-alcoholic beverages. We talk about wanting to understand what we call the demand space. So in this example, what are the moments where people are enjoying non-alcoholic beverages and how we can link our product to the consumer moment that they're having. So in this case, we have focus and fuel, indulgence, hydration, and health. And this is just a study that we did for non-alcoholic beverages, just to give you an idea of how to link the product and to resonate with the demand space. The last point about shopping channels. So this is a view of the value share within FMCG. Now, many of you will know that Vietnam is still a general trade market. Lots of tap hoa, lots of small retailer stores, right? Even in the urban areas, those general stores still account for more than half of all spending for FMCG. However, what is really clear when you look, particularly in this green one, the online is now accounting for 11% of the market share for FMCG in urban, and it's now up to 4% in rural area. Your hyper supermarket is around 12% of the market, and the other one that's also grown is mini market. So you will have seen the Bakwasan, Win Commerce, all these guys. They obviously have expanded quite significantly and are taking more market share. In rural area, of course, the general trade is still much bigger, 80%, 85%. However, the secondary urban and the rural area is the space that the stores have to develop. And we're seeing a lot more openings of the mini stores and even of bigger malls now popping up in kind of more rural areas. And that's drawing crowds to the shopping mall and also then to the supermarket that sits within that shopping mall. So this is something that we're also seeing change. But the challenge is that Vietnamese shoppers are overall making less shopping trips in a year. So it used to be 145. So let's say 3 times a week for FMCG. It's down to 124. At the same time, they're shopping in more different places. So less trips, but more different places of shopping. What that means is the market is becoming really fragmented. It's really hard for any retailer to drive loyalty and repeat business because consumers are open to going wherever they feel they can get the best deal or wherever they feel they can have the product that it is that they're looking for. So for any brand owner here, the key thing I would call out is you have to be available everywhere where your shopper could go. Otherwise, you cannot get bought. And again, it's very different. I will not go into all the details, but here we have general trade, modern trade, and online. Different categories skew to the different channels. So it's really important to understand that. Now, we talked about online. Vlad showed some of the numbers. Today, 70% of urban households shop online for FMCG at least once per year. That's up from 59% in 2 years ago. So 7 out of 10 households are buying groceries online now in urban areas. And even in the rural area, it's nearly half of rural households who buy groceries online. So if I included clothing, electronics, and everything else, these numbers would be much higher. This is only for grocery. And lots of things that the players are doing. So making payment much easier. I'm sure you'd have realized lots of vouchers available. And the other thing that Vlad mentioned about the quick delivery. This is the current hot topic. How quickly can those products be delivered once they've been ordered? And for groceries, particularly chilled, frozen groceries, that's obviously a very important factor. And then basically, in order to win here, we have to understand the shopping mission that someone is on. So all of you probably go shopping sometimes. Sometimes because you know you've run out of a product, so you need to top up that product. Sometimes you're shopping because you're just looking around and you're exploring to see what's available. And again, different channels play a different role. If we talk about online, the role that online tends to play right now is where we are purchasing large quantities of products that we know we're going to use at home. And that's the space that online is currently winning. So just to summarize, overall, consumers are very cautious. Trust is the new currency, and the in-home market is under pressure right now. In order to develop and grow, we need to consider the micro consumer clusters. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. We have to understand our specific target, purposeful portfolio management, and then the mission-led channel strategy, which I mentioned as well. So thank you very much for listening. I know that was lots of numbers. I'll be happy to take any questions during the discussion later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter, for the insights. I could see that you're indeed a numbers guy, but as well the way you interpret, the way you analyze. I could see that you put love in your work and you also understand the market in that. So definitely. Shout out to Peter whenever you would need any in-depth support into understanding the Vietnamese context, not just the FMCG, but the general retail marketing. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Hung, for joining us and giving us your insights. And we as well have Mr. Ryan here from Amazon Global Services. Introducing Ryan quickly, just with this job title, it's quite long, I'll have to read it. Senior Account Manager, Team Lead, Central and South Vietnam, and New Region Development, Haiphong for Amazon Global Selling Services in Vietnam. Important and exciting job there, a lot of things to do. So again, thank you for your attention. Thank you to the panelists for accepting to have this discussion on the retail opportunities in Vietnam. I'll start with my first question to Peter, actually, since he was on the stage, and wanted to get his insights on the connection between retail on the offline and on the online space. Obviously, investors may be looking at one or the other of these channels, but with a strategy that reflects an omni-channel exposure, do you think integrating these channels will be a benefit for consumers, and do you think the brands are going into that direction?
Thank you. I mean, in short, we should not consider offline and online as two separate spaces anymore. And I think the word that was on the slide earlier, the omni-channel. Okay, so the way I see it is moving away from what we used to call maybe multi-channel, where we shop in different places, but to omni-channel. As a consumer, I want to have the same seamless experience, regardless of whether I am offline or online when I interact with a brand. So in general, overall, I think that that's something that is a really important one. And if I was a brand looking to enter this market, my long-term strategy would absolutely to play in both the online and the offline space. In the short term, I would argue online can be the most interesting and important way. It was referenced before, like getting space in store in Vietnam, like in a general trade that only carry a few SKUs, and even in modern trade that carry more, can sometimes be difficult, especially as an outside brand. The online space opens up that to everyone. And so you can get listings, and using algorithm, etc., can get your product in front of people at the moment when they're looking for that category. So long term, absolutely, yes, we should not consider them as separate. But in the short term, online definitely would be where I would prioritize.
And that's as well our experience at a climb when we speak with foreign investors entering the retail market in Vietnam. I would say that 8 out of 10 have a particular interest in the online space, either listing themselves on one of the top platforms like TikTok or Shopee, or just bringing in their own app, their own products, their own ecosystem into the market. Ryan, the next one, just following on Peter's insights, from your perspective at Amazon, what are some of the channels or the most significant channel exposure that investors are taking in Vietnam? And maybe this is an opportunity to share a few details about what you do at Amazon Global Services as well.
So first of all, hello everyone. So my name is Ryan. I'm from Amazon, and actually a lot of people have questions on how Amazon doing in Vietnam. So Amazon Global Selling is one of the Amazon global marketing companies. We are building since 2019, and it's been 7 years in Vietnam. And our mission is to have a local business, not just within Vietnam. We are expanding our business in Southeast Asia, like in Thailand and Singapore as well. And thank you so much for Acclaim as well to invite us for the insightful event today. And back to the question from Vlad, over the past 7 years, we have a lot of local business, especially for young or SME business in Vietnam. They're going global with Amazon, and we are seeing a lot of challenges not just from the brand, also from the local manufacturer. So I would like to call out 3 challenges that we have seen over the past 7 years. The first one, from the mindset, from the traditional, because a lot, as you know, Vietnam is has advantages in terms of exporting to the US market, like furniture, grocery, or some apparel. But this is a traditional trade, like they have to get over a lot of medium, like wholesale buyer, until they reach to the direct customer. So the first challenge, they are being like, they want to just say like Amazon platform is just a sign for their product listing, not for the brand building. So that's they just put on everything in Vietnam into Amazon and just wait for the sale. So that have we encounter a lot of issues in terms of the profit and loss, and secondly, how to optimize their business online. And the second thing would be product compliance readiness for the market, because Amazon, we have over 23 marketplace worldwide, and each marketplace we require its compliance, like product. Vietnam business, they are quite too young, and they are being left up quite or regulator to have them to unlock the product compliance for each country. So it would be take time for them to transform from the local business to global scale. And the last one would be their human resources, because this is one of our challenge so far we feel in the market. As you know, to run a business, not just within the local, you mentioned that you have to run a global scale. That means you have to invest for your expertise team, not just within the team lead or some execution member. You have to define the direct direction for each team to go global. So some of all of that, this is the 3 challenges we are seeing from Vietnam business to go global with Amazon.
You can keep the microphone. Thank you, Ryan. And again, the challenges are not within the compliance and operational side, but also on the finance side.
Yes.
So now going back to finance, and hopefully Hoon can give us some insights here. Based on your experience, obviously we work with investors from various industries, right, and sectors across Vietnam, and global investors entering here. What do you think would be some of the financial considerations that investors seeking to expand into the Vietnam's ecosystem, either online or either offline retail? What should they consider when entering the market from a finance planning perspective?
Thank you, Vlad. Hello, everyone. My name is Ho. I'm from Vietnambank, and come here today. They are my team from Singapore and my team from in Ho Chi Minh City. Actually, this is the first time I join a panel like this, and so I'm a little bit nervous. And to answer your question, because based on some of the regulation and my experience for 15 years, that's both FDI customer investing in Vietnam. I see that the first year in the investing in US, you should focus on the capital you invest in Vietnam, including charter capital and the shareholder loan from the parent company. Beyond the regulation of Vietnam, the charter capital must be contributed in 90 days. And you should balance the charter capital and the shareholder loans to have a flexibility in finance. And on the charter capital and shareholder loans must be transferred through direct investment capital account. This is very important for you because if you do wrong, it's a big problem for you when you want to buy back the loan or the policy and and release the profit. Secondly, in the operating stage, I believe that now you need to have a strong cash management, digital platform cash management. This must be now. I see that some big bank, big local bank in Vietnam, such as in Vietnambank, our online platform can integrate it with the accounting ecosystem, the company system, and the ERP system, so that it helps you to manage the cash flow from end to end, from the customer to the supplier. Yes, and as Vietnambank now, there are more than 95% of product that we can do online, fully online, not have a document it anymore. Yes, I see it's a good for the investor. Yes, to buy themselves. Yes, and in the repatriation state, this is very important for you to.
The dividend repatriation.
Yes, dividend repatriation. It's quite. I believe that you should prepare soon. Every year you need audited financial statement and fulfill the tax obligation and prepare so that you will minimize the risk from execution. Yes, when you profit repatriation.
Thank you so much. Indeed, the structuring of the loans, particularly what you shared, I believe within the retail ecosystem, that becomes important when setting up in Vietnam. It's not just the charter capital that is relevant for that investment, and the structuring those loans properly is important indeed. Thank you so much. Back to you, Peter, with the question reflecting AI. I don't know if you at the World Panel, for example, you use or you integrate, or you've seen that retailers and global brands using AI and automation within their customer journey. There are some quite strong numbers into the implementation of AI agents across the entire e-commerce and online retail space. And I was wondering if you have any insights within that area.
Thank you. I probably don't surprisingly have many numbers on this topic. I mean, firstly, it's everywhere in terms, but particularly when you look at online retail, AI is already helping to drive the algorithms that play underneath what we're looking at. And I think that is a huge one of the big reasons that TikTok Shop has been hugely successful is the success of their algorithm and the way that it works and puts the right content in front of people. The other areas that AI is working is also in terms of price and managing sort of more dynamic pricing that we're starting to see in the market. Now, the average Vietnamese consumer, is AI today deciding for them what to buy? Because I see lots of talk about agentic agents, and honestly speaking, no. I haven't seen that. I don't believe that myself. Others might disagree with me, but right now, today, is that a big thing? I don't think so. But what it does do is it helps people to take decisions. I talked earlier about trust, particularly when people want to buy something. They are looking online to look for reviews. They're looking online to understand. And AI is unlocking a lot of what is available online to help them to take a decision for themselves. So if I was to summarize, it's certainly helping on the decision-making process, but we're not yet at the point where people are automating the decision to AI, not for grocery at least.
Yeah, makes sense. Ryan, what's your view on, from your experience with Amazon, the global platform, but as well some of the AI tools that are implemented across some of your clients here in Vietnam? How do they use agentic AI to drive the customer journey and to increase margins?
Relax. So this question is really generally exciting for me because in Amazon, as you know, we are the big platform for giant e-commerce. So in September 2025, we just upgraded one of our agentic AI called Seller Assistant, which is available for all seller partners worldwide to leverage how Amazon operation and scale their business online. And I will summarize what Seller Assistant for Amazon can help seller operate and scale the business. So the first thing that, as you know, when you scale global, the first barrier would be a language barrier because all of Vietnamese brand and manufacturer, they are unable to capture the trend or everything about the market in its version or other marketplace. With Seller AI, we can have seller generate and optimize the listing, product prediction, and also the quality of the listing when they put online on Amazon. And after that, with AI Seller Assistant, it just not doesn't answer Q&A question. It helps seller like it take action on behalf of seller to determine which content listing will be more conversion for Amazon. It's possible for US. So this is the first thing. And the second thing in terms of the regulation and product compliance, I mentioned before. So with Seller Assistant AI, we can have the seller to monitor the regulator update from this country. For example, if you export to like the grocery to US, you need to require and obtain FDA certification. And on the system, especially for Amazon, we also trigger the signal for the seller, hey, you need to obtain FDA certification before you start to sell on Amazon and before you get enforcement. So this tool will help seller to be on track how their product be ready for market and how they should update within the regulator for each country. And the top one would be advertising. I should selling online, advertising is fundamental pillar for your business. So with Seller Assistant, AI can help seller monitor the campaign and monitor the bidding for the campaign to help you optimize the sales revenue on advertising and optimize your profit margin. And the last one would be market intelligence. So for first numerator, is our one big client from Amazon. We usually learn the report about the market and also customer behavior on Amazon. With AI assistant on Amazon, seller can identify the opportunity for product demand within the global marketplace on Amazon. And after based on the behavior customer. And with that AI seller can identify which products suitable for Amazon, which products suitable for other platforms. So summarize on the AI seller assistant, we are helping Vietnamese seller. They are more efficiency. So before back to 2020, we used to consult one new business to Amazon. They need to have at least 5 members to run this project. But now with the assistant AI from Amazon, you need only like 2%, two members. Like they can manage all things by AI and and operation the rest from the brand. So it would be more efficiently and cut the operation cost for the brand. So this is my theory.
Thank you, Ryan. Indeed, I see there's a bit of difference here of how AI is used across the space. Consumers are just looking at opportunities from the platforms and from the brands or the best product, the cheapest, the best quality. But instead, on the other side, the brands are investing a lot in AI tools to drive that consumer behavior and to support brands to further create more value within the online space. Do you see AI as well within the offline space that has a role to play, or at the moment it is really focused at that digital, let's say, component of the retail?
So from my perspective, so we are working with 100 brands from Vietnam. They are just not just for the immersion brand, also retail brand. When they leverage Amazon e-commerce platform by using AI online, they can adapt the signal from the market, like how do I say, the market trend, and they transform that into their retail distribution. One of the best practice I have seen and witnessed from my partner. They are selling a beauty cosmetic products on Amazon. So when they're using AI on Amazon, they generate more insight from the customer, from the market. And when they look at their retail distribution in the US, they find a lot like the gap between how to convert the consumer in the US from their Amazon online store, and they train on their operation in terms how to use database from the AI to generate more, like for example, like advertising campaign or some promotional from the online and convert to the offline. That's the best practice so far we see from the retail brand. They leverage from AI tool to adapt for the market for retail trend.
Right. Thank you, Ryan. Peter, you shared an interesting insight in your presentation about how fragmented the market is, and potentially it can continue to be more fragmented in the future. Obviously, excluding the very large brands and retailers are consolidation. What I wanted to understand is what should brands do to mitigate that fragmentation? What are some of the actions or strategies that they can do to drive repeat sales or repeat purchases from customers instead of just riding the wave and letting them shop every week in 6 or 7 different places? What are some of the things that you find from your data?
So I think so. Anyone who follows World Panel, one of the things that we always talk about is that winning shoppers is the most important factor. From 1 year to the next, 80% of the people who bought your brand, they won't buy you next year. So what that means for any brand is, my opinion is, and the data backs this up, is don't chase loyalty or repeat purchase. The ambition should always be to win shoppers and to re-win shoppers. So it's always focused on winning shoppers.
So that would mean in a commercial context, new logos, new clients, new buyer, new shoppers.
As in,
not focused so much on the existing ones.
So in other words, considering that your existing buyers today, they may not be your buyer tomorrow. So it's always about how we keep re-winning buyers. We should never take our shoppers for granted and assume that they will repeat their business. I showed you some numbers earlier about how many new products there are. Vietnam in particular is a market where new news travels fast and excites people. People are very easy to try something, but then by that same logic, they're very easy to try something else. And therefore, actually building up loyalty becomes a very challenging topic. So yeah, constantly looking to win shoppers. And then how do you do that? That's what I broadly talked about. I think the first thing is being available. You know, if Vietnamese shoppers are shopping in 6 or 7 different places and your product is only available in one place, the probability of your product being purchased is already at a disadvantage, right? So it's understanding when I, as a consumer, are looking online versus when I'm going to a hyper supermarket. What is it that is in my mind? What is the mission that I'm on? And making sure that I have my product available in the right pack size, in the right, you know, whatever it might be, in that moment. Okay, because that decision moment is going to be very important. So yeah, so in summary, again, focusing on always winning shoppers rather than trying to increase the spending of your existing ones is probably going to be a better tactic to fuel longer term sustainable growth.
Right. And I believe historically, some of the large e-commerce platforms that were focusing initially when they entered the market, like Lazada and Shopee and TikTok, they were focusing quite a lot on loyalty at the early stages. And then later on, they realized that it is really difficult to win that game. So now they're attracting new customers there with, you know, very different tools and very different strategies than that loyalty focus. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. If I can, consumers are very savvy in Vietnam. They're always going to look around to find the best deal and take advantage of all the different platforms. Like they will have memberships or accounts everywhere, and they will pick and choose what to use at which time. Again, AI helps price comparison very easily. So all of a sudden I can compare prices quite quickly in different places, and then I can make different decisions. So I think that that's an important point. And all of those players have realized that winning shoppers is very important. And TikTok is a really great example from, you know, Shopee and Lazada have been here a while. TikTok's buyer base has been phenomenal over the last 2 or 3 years. So they've just been focused on winning shoppers.
Right. Hung, this one for you. Quite a tough question we got from the online audience before the event, particularly structured across capital controls. And the explanation, the question is basically a practical explanation on what foreign-owned e-commerce platforms need to consider when, from a funds flow perspective, and as well when working with customers that are within the Vietnamese jurisdiction.
Yes. From the characteristics of this industry, that you have to handle the high volume of transaction every day, and there are lots of payment methods. I see that there are for practical area that you should pay attention on. First is about the currency. In Vietnam, you must be received in Vietnamese đồng. You can the price can be displayed in foreign currency only for preference only. But the transaction must be received in Vietnam đồng. And the secondly is that the payment often via through the wireless an intermediary button. So you need to prepare the reconciliation document to prepare for the tax authority about the invoice. Yes. And the third is about the refund. In this industry, I see that a lot of my customers have a refund activity every day. So you need to have a robust and automatic refund. You need to connect with the bank to do that. So you have your customer have a better experience and have you better in administration. Yes. And the last thing is about the cash on delivery. It's quite popular in Vietnam for the order below $200 US beyond the government regulation. But now the tax authority and government, they need the market more transparency. So you you should prepare the document carefully to not miss the trouble from the tax authority.
Thank you. Sure, there's these regulatory changes from the authorities reflect new entrants in the market, particularly coming in from China in the e-commerce space that brought a lot of value to the consumers, as well as the authorities wanted to put in regulation and to strengthen that consumer protection within that process as well. Ryan, we're getting through the end of the questions here, but one of the final one for you would be particularly looking at costs and margins. Costs are obviously increasing, maybe across the board on the manufacturing side, on the employment side, as well on the product side. Margins still need to be protected. In many scenarios, margins need to increase as well to demonstrate the value of the market. What's your experience with your investors that you're working with at Vietnamese businesses on how they protect those margins?
Okay. Thank you for the question, Vlad. So before I jump into the selling, how we help seller, especially for Vietnamese business, to control their margin and their profits on platform like us on Amazon. So assuming that you are selling one of the products, like for example, like furniture products on Amazon, and you put online on a listing for the retail right, with $100 for one product. And I will have you write down the detailed Amazon cost structure to understand what's in the gap between the cost and initial investment and the net margin. So based on that product, we can divide into three parts. The first part would be Amazon cost structure. For Amazon part, we do have like the first one, referral fee, we track like 15% by your retail right. And the second would be FBA fee. It's based on your product dimension. We have a lot of tier of the size of the product. So normally it's about average like 12 to 18% of your retail right. And the last one would be the storage fee. That means you have to store your product into Amazon warehouse, and it's probably like 2 or 3%. As you know, take out of that, Amazon would consume around like 40 to 50% of the seller revenue. And for the second part would be like initial investment. This is your manufacturing cost, your shipping cost, your operation cost. And we recommend that seller should maintain around like 20 to 30% to have their business scale. And the last one would be the advertising, because as you know, when you want to run your business online, you need to capture the impression and have more traffic for your product. So at least you need to like allocate your advertising spend for the business, and it's probably like 20 to 30%. To summarize for the on cost structure, so Amazon platform would cost like 40%, and you have initial investment, advertising, and net margin would be around like 10 to 15%. But in that scale, you have to manage very effective for every cost, and to help the seller when they scale business for the long term, because we all recommend like the new business, when you set the standard Amazon, you should think about the long-term business, because where the first year you're launching, you just like building your brand, and the second year would be the profit year. So we have a schedule, like how do I say, like the journey for the seller to define which year is their year and margin year, and which year is their investment. And to help seller on that, we will define how they can have for each level to optimize the margin. The first one would be the retail right. This is you can adjust because it depends on the market. And we recommend seller they can look at other top player or the competitor, how they perform on within the category, and you can invest for your upfront assets. For example, like brand message, brand story, or the packaging to have your product look more expensive, but you have also demand product that you can increase your revenue. The top one would be advertising efficiency, because a lot of like lesson from our supported trend. For the first year, they don't invest too much for advertising. But for e-commerce, as you know, nobody find you on by accident. You have to impression and the traffic from the server. So that's why you have to allocate the budget, but you have to use that budget efficiently, and we will have the seller to define which state to spend, which state to optimize, which state to stop. That's the journey how to optimize the cost. And the third one would be like initial investment. A lot like brand owner, they treat Amazon like listing platform, not a brand building platform. So that's why they bring on their existing product in Vietnam and put it online. So the cost of inventory would be higher than other brand from Amazon. So we recommend that the brand owner should look at in the inventory cost and the shipping cost, operation cost for each phase, not to invest especially for the first phase. And the last one would be Amazon contractor, because we do have a flexible cost, example for FBA fee, advertising fee, and also storage fee. And we will base on your performance every month to help you decide which cost you should optimize by leverage the packaging or labeling, or you can cut the operation cost by leverage using AI. So some of that, I just want to say the message when you're building a global scale business, not just for Amazon, you should think about brand building, build your product and build your machine for the long term. And this is how Vietnam win global.
Well, thank you, Ryan. I think very solid insights, particularly on the cost structuring, and I think a lot of investors will want to talk to you about that. You know, everyone is at one point earlier rather than later, they will look at the cost efficiency, the synergies that they can leverage, and as well the margins development. Last question on my side before the Q&A to all the panelists. One specific bet you would make on Vietnam's retail and e-commerce landscape in the next 3 years, and one thing you would warn the audience, the investors that are looking at this space to watch out for. Who would like to start?
There was 2 questions. The first one, the big bet. I'm not sure if it's really a big bet, to be honest. You know, when I show the numbers, everyone can see how much online continues to grow. It still has, you know, both online and there was a question earlier, modern trade that I showed. There's still a big runway for growth in Vietnam for both of those channels, because the general trade is still a really big portion of the market. It's still 70-80% of rural, but you can see that already more than half of rural shoppers are buying things online, and that is becoming their habit too. So, and when the operators can open more locations in outside of the big cities, also the modern trade development will continue as well. So I'm not sure that's a very big bet. We can see the trend already, but both online and modern trade still have a big runway for growth in this market. The second question was about a warning, right, for investors. So after listening to the numbers that Ryan was sharing and about how difficult the margins would be, I think is making sure that when you do spend some money on advertising and research, I would say, to be really focused on what it is that you're looking at. And one of the things that I've seen fail quite often is when you come from another market with strong credentials, strong background, and you know how it works in that market, that won't necessarily translate to how things work in Vietnam. So don't come only with that very closed mindset of this worked in my home country, this will work in Vietnam. No way. It has to be a very localized approach, and we've seen many big failed examples of companies that come over and think they can just, you know, rinse and repeat, and it doesn't work like that. So that would be my warning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, from my the financial perspective, I see that this is periods of lacking in Vietnam. So the inflation is about 5%. The interest rate is, and so in the number that's say with you that's the consumer demand. Where somewhere we say that it's not increase like the demand of the consumer. So I believe that in the next time we release the time of the periods of lucky money we last at least end of this year. Optimistic. So I believe that the investor in this industry you should focus on how to optimize the cost efficiency so that you can bring the price. You can bring the price that's affordable for the customer.
Thank you, Brian.
And the last one. So, so I would like to say my perspective in terms of the e-commerce experience. My best would be for e-commerce side. So I from our last update, Amazon Global Selling Vietnam is the hub of Amazon Global Selling for South Asia for over 7 years. We are so proud to be the hub, the e-commerce hub from Amazon Inc. And we will see like the fundamental shift from the volume exporter to global brand. What do I mean by saying that is because in recent our Amazon SME Empowerment Report we just released last year, there's a one like Amazon Vietnam seller, they have grown on Amazon with global sales revenue in 35%. And there are very interesting fact figure is about the revenue of the business on Amazon achieved 1 million a year in from 60%. That's making you have a lot of Vietnamese millionaire on Amazon right now. And from the last form, we also see I believe that's a lot of investors here. Like we are building a global brand, but they are consumer brand recognized by Amazon. And we want to have them to go IPO, one is our big mission, because we have a lot of successful case for other markets. And Vietnam is an emerging market right now. So that's why we see a lot of potential from Vietnam seller. And this is my bet. And my warning would be, I mentioned before in terms of the contractor and machine. So whenever you have a decision and attention about the e-commerce platform, you should be aware about the platform cost and other spend for your investment. And be confident in building your brand asset upfront, because this is your long-term access to reach and maximize your revenue. Because from my experience, we do see a lot like just like a startup company with the retail brand in Vietnam for a long history, but for the startup company, they have the open mindset, tech savvy, and brand building mindset. They are more even successful. And but for the retail brand, they have a long history, but they have to like control how to optimize. And in the next year, they would in the market, the winner would be like not the best seller, the big seller. They are the profitable seller. They can optimize the business and scale the business for long term. So this is my theory.
Absolutely subscribe to all of that, focusing on the long term and not just on the initial profit stage, and making sure that you can sustain that engine of growth. That is really the key challenge, and that's really the goal for investors in challenging markets, but high potential markets like retail and online commerce. I think we're done with the questions from my side. Opening up for the audience online and offline. I have someone there.
So thank you for the series on panelists. So I have a question for the peer. So you say consumer are increasingly relying on AI generated answer instead of browsing multiple websites. So instead of just focusing only on search engine optimization of Google, a company now may also need to optimize for AI answer engines. like decoded, AEO or GL, I don't know. So do you think retail companies should already be investing in this shift? And what is the first practical step to stay visible in the AI first world?
Okay, thank you for your question. To start with, I am not an AI expert, and maybe my friends here can add something to this. But from a consumer perspective and what you just said, definitely yes, that search engine optimization remains important today, but also now thinking about AI and optimizing for AI conversation chat, that is definitely something that's very important. There are lots of talk about agentic agents that will start to make recommendations of products. But if you're a brand owner, you want to be the product that's being recommended. So working on that and being the one that ends up being recommended to consumer. I won't say consumers are going to blindly copy or follow everything that AI says. I hope not, at least. But it can happen. And if your product is being literally proposed by AI, then that probably gives you a good first step up, a good boost to start with. So yes, absolutely yes, we need to start looking at that. It will continue to develop, it will continue to grow, even if my opinion today is that it's not necessarily happening right here, right now. It definitely will continue. And you know, we have Amazon here mentioned, so maybe you can add, but the data that companies like mine collect are what companies like Amazon use and AI will use to make those recommendations, because we understand what the trends and what consumers are buying. So I play more in the data part. I will let the execution part more in the Amazon space.
Thank you. So just want to add one more insight from our side in terms of the AI. When you suffer or when you experience something on Amazon, you will recognize what AI tool named Alexa. So this Alexa, so how it works? So when you search one of the technical products on Amazon, you will see a lot of recommendations from Alexa, hey, you should change product and something like that. And the second, if you maintain the frequency of the visit of the store, Alexa will recommend and record your history shop to like promote some idea and also some new product with a promotion for you. And one of the interesting things Alexa can help the shopper when you how do I say, like make a note for Alexa, hey, I want to buy a birthday gift on next month. So Alexa will record that information and will generate and pop up into your app to help you make a weekly decision. So on that survey for the shopper experience, we view from outside internal backend. We collect a lot like inside from the seller, selling partner to ensure we have the best selection to suggest for the shopper experience.
Hopefully that answered your question. One more.
Thank you very much for your story. I come from JD Company. I have a question for Peter. To what's actually 3% one by one. First question regarding FMCG in Vietnam. Question how to segment to better between the fry less and one less growth in markets of Vietnam in India.
Sorry, just to repeat the question, how to balance the, so
how do you set to between price and one less growth in market Vietnam?
Yeah, it is certainly a challenge because I think it's been mentioned already, rising costs of, you know, to produce product, rising cost of moving product around the world, oil, etc., etc., etc. So this is definitely a big challenge that a lot of our clients are facing. How are they dealing with this or trying to balance? Few ways. So when Vietnamese consumers are are challenged as well. We can look at the different price tier of within a category, within a product. So, you know, within any category, you have, let's say, your entry level mainstream. There's always room for premiumization. There are always consumers who are willing to pay more for higher quality. At the same time, there's also the ability to go down the price tier as well. If we want to focus on volume, how can we offer a more basic product for this moment where we can bring down the price? The quality also is lower, of course, but bring down the price and make it so as a manufacturer, I can have an offering at the higher end of the market, medium end of the market, but also the lower end of the market as well. And that's one of the ways that a lot of our clients are trying to tackle this.
So the last one, you mentioned first. Those FMCG business chain and how do they manage products that are to ensure they can be always profitable by AI agent?
Again, I think from if I will approach the question a little bit differently in that when online started to really develop, so I mentioned I've been here around 12 years. So if I go back about 10 years, online already at that point was starting to build up some momentum. There was a lot of resistance in many companies to actually put focus and effort in online. Because at that moment, it was just like 0 point something or 1% of the market. But we've seen the growth. Okay, so it's happened already. So with AI, I will argue it's the same thing. What should we do today is put resources, time, money to focus on that specific area. Even if today it's not a big part of the business, I think everyone here, you know, most of us here would agree that it will continue to grow. Online has already shown us this. So if we put our first foot in now by having the people, having resources against it, we will be in a good place when it really starts to develop. And that's probably where I would come at it from.
Very much. I would like to have two questions. One for Peter and the other for Peter.
So let's start with Ryan then. Share the love. Okay. Okay.
We see that is the volume, is the value, and the is increased. So you observe this as a really true premiumization, or it just the fuel is like inflation price effect. And then, so is there any structural shift in consumer behavior impacting business? Because when we see that all the revenue coming from the higher income consumer segment, and then is there any crowd will really concentrate on this segment, or let's say the mass segment will go down?
You're testing man. Oh, what again?
And then we talk about the purpose. Prestige non-essential good. It's not very luxury, but it's prestige product. Prestige product and non-essential goods. So if you observe it because the brand monetization increase. Is there any key driving the consumer behavior of this segment? They will go online for shopping, or we still continue with the traditional behavior. So must have a partner, massage from customer service in order to serve the consumer in this segment.
You're testing my memory in terms of the question. So I think premiumization is always a hot topic and is always one of the strategies of many FMCG company. To answer your question, over the last couple of years, is it truly premiumization or is the value growth coming from price? Actually, if you look across many categories, many manufacturers, there's been a lot of price increases put through the market. So price increases are what is driving that value growth right now, or what we call shrinkflation, which is basically where instead of increasing the price to the consumer, the pack suddenly shrinks without telling anyone. So instead of 20 pieces, you now get 19 pieces, but the price stays the same. This has also been a common tactic for how to manage that. But to be fair to the manufacturer, they have seen big cost increases and they need to also protect their own margins, right? So over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of price increase coming through the market. But there is still a lot of premiumization that can be found. I will link a couple of the longer term trends. One is falling birth rates, and more smaller households. If you have falling birth rates, less children to look after, and smaller households, where I showed when you have smaller households, they tend to spend more per person on FMCG, then they can go for the more premium options as well. So there's certainly going to be opportunities still for premiumization in the years to come. Yeah, I'm going to hand over to Ryan for that, but you might need to repeat the question unless you remember.
Okay, so from my understanding about your question, so what is the strategy how to target the segment for the brand, right? Like premium segment or the professional segment, something like that, right? Is it correct?
See that it's not really to trade up. It's more about the price effect. So it's more about the inflation driving effect, as the leader just said. So we still have a premium taxation, but then is a frequency and the money spent. Which one will increase? And especially for traditional products and non-essential products. So whether we can see the key driver of consumer behavior in this segment will be changed or will be shifted to online or still insist on the traditional way of buying product purchasing. They will not go online, even we have AI, even very luxury parts in order to support them. Or they still insist on really have an in-person pamper, massage, test, and then have a very luxury services in order to buy the products.
Okay, I think I understand your question. So I would say from my role life how I manage and work directly on daily basis with the brand in terms of the key driver for customer behavior. As you know, for the e-commerce platform, people like consumer would be like they will discover everything on one platform and then we compare other platform and then they will show on social e-commerce and maybe the final step they don't go something online, they will go for offline store. So that's behavior depend on how brand they should motion in their brand image, brand story, and brand message to the customer, whether they segment their products like average medium spend products or high luxury products. So we see from e-commerce side like for one portfolio of the product, when the brand put online, they will divide into two segments, medium right and premium right. So they need to invest a lot more in terms of the brand access and how they do a marketing and promote in terms of like to educate the shopper what is the value they should get from the premium segment and what is the value they should get from the medium segment. So we see a lot of impact from the business as well, but for the local market, you should understand like each country they have a different customer behavior. So from Amazon side, we also generate a lot of report and also data to help the brand to evaluate and validate the product market fit for each segment to be before you starting to go local. So this is from myself.
Given the relatively low margin on Amazon and the high cost, just for the Vietnam context now, what are the main product groups, sectors, and brands in Vietnam that you would recommend to use Amazon? Like just compares in Germany, you can buy every single time cheap product also on Amazon. But does that make sense in an area where many people would just buy it on Taobao or Alipay? What in Vietnam? What are the Vietnamese brands successful on Amazon?
This is a very interesting question. So, starting from our last one, we do have a lot of program to define a segment for the shopper. Like there's Temu or Alibaba or Taobao is very cheap product with low ASP. But for Amazon, we do have Amazon points. It means like low medium spend for the product. But this is the only invited program which is we apply for one of the big manufacturer where they can optimize their inventory and optimize their long-term cost structure. But for the Amazon e-commerce side, for from Vietnam markets right now, we are overseeing like 7 years. There's a lot of trend and advantage from manufacturing in Vietnam. We have on board a lot of top key industry in Vietnam like furniture, apparel, grocery, personal care, food, and FMCG as well. We have like some kind like Vietnamese very popular Amazon US right now, and we do have also a lot of industries from XDI segment. They build their ODM factory in Vietnam. They also potential for Amazon business from Vietnam, and from our perspective to help the brand or the local business to define their global journey with Amazon. They need to pick the market lane to stage first, like the US is the easier and would allow entry barrier right now. With the dedicated team support from Vietnam, you can just like take 3 months to launch your store in the US. And besides of that, we do have a lot because we are data-driven company, so we do have a lot of data and report to help you evaluate this business good for you to scale and which segment, which target audience, and which strategy for brand positioning in the local market lane. And you just not build for Amazon e-commerce, you build for omni-channel, like your online to offline, and then you expand to other platforms in the US with our recommendation. So I hope this answer would be helpful for your question. Yes.
Thank you, Ryan, for answering that one, and thank you as well for the audience for the questions. We're going to wrap up now the event. I would like to first thank the audience here at the Executive Center in Ho Chi Minh City and as well the people online. Without your time that you offered us today, we wouldn't all be here. We'll be at work, sitting at our desk or doing something else. So thank you again for the opportunity to for all of us here to speak in front of you. And secondly, I would like to thank my wonderful guests, Peter, Hung, and Ryan. Very solid insights, and I think there's a lot of people that want to talk to you individually, and please exchange your information on that side. And lastly, thank you for Climb's marketing team for putting this together, and hopefully we'll have new events coming up in the next few months, as well as we discussed with the Executive Center. Thank you for being the hosts. Once a quarter, we might continue organizing these events here. It's a wonderful occasion, and thank you again for your support. With that being said, the industry of retail and online commerce is significant, is growing. We've heard all the insights. We're here to support you, the panelists, with your expertise, myself with our Climb ecosystem. If there's a need to get involved at one stage or another one, please reach out. And in the meantime, stay safe, and keep in touch soon. Thank you again for everyone for participating.